We're going to be doing a short series on some of those hotly debated orchid care topics, and watering frequency is often one of those ones that really gets people's temperatures up. So let's look into why they think theirs is the best, and will their techniques kill your orchids? Welcome to the Nature Company. Today we're going to be looking at those different water frequencies people use to get the most out of their orchids. We'll look at their reasonings behind why they use them and suggest you should too. At the end, we'll go through some of the shortcomings of each of these different watering frequencies to ensure that you can choose the best one to get the most out of your orchids. If this is the kind of information you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already, and that notification bell to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Often with watering frequencies, it's often just a little bit of a misunderstanding here and there that people just aren't getting quite right. So let's have a look at some of those different frequencies people insist on and why they go about it that way. And there's a little caveat here. There are certain people who grow certain orchids that think all orchids need the same care. The first and probably the most common watering frequency that people suggest for orchids is weekly. A weekly watering, or at least a fixed schedule watering. And this is specifically, or not specifically, but often associated with your Phalaenopsis. People suggest water once a week and that's all they'll need. This is to ensure they're getting enough hydration, and you're basically trying to mimic the controlled conditions that they were grown in originally. And the reasonings behind this is that they are saying that the orchid leaves are nice, big and fleshy, or they have large pseudobulbs or fleshy roots that help store moisture for short periods of drying that is going to happen in between those waterings. And it's also going to help avoid overwatering, which could cause root rot or lack of oxygen to the roots. But there is a shortcoming to this. Watering on a fixed schedule like this does not accommodate for changes in your climatic conditions around the orchid, especially indoors where you may have things like heaters or air conditioners on, which are going to dry out your orchid a lot faster. So there are some shortcomings in this fixed schedule because it doesn't account for any fluctuations in the climate conditions around the orchid, especially if you're growing them indoors and you've turned on that air conditioner or those heaters that may affect the drying of the media and the orchid itself. Watering frequency number 2 is only watering again when your media is completely dry. You wait for your media, whether it's sphagnum moss, bark, coir chips, to dry out completely before re-watering. This then prevents overwatering and possible root rot. It gives enough time for the roots to dry out in between your waterings. And since orchids are epiphytic out in nature, all they're going to be getting is that runoff from the tree as it rains, and then they're going to be dry again, allowing them to breathe. Scientific research on root respiration proves that orchids thrive in a well-aerated environment. With overwatering, you're going to be reducing the oxygen content in your media. But watering like this doesn't account for all the different types of orchids. Certain orchids like to be kept moist all the time, so allowing their media to dry out completely can cause problems for them. And with the specific media that you use, it may be hydrophobic once it has become too dry, and then your water may just rush straight through, then causing further problems with dehydration. Watering frequency number 3 is watering when observing the color of the roots. If you have nice green roots, your roots are hydrated. If the roots are silver, it means they're dry and you need to water. So you monitor the root color to determine its watering needs. And as you water, so the roots change color from the silvery to green, suggesting that they're now hydrated. And thus you're using these visual cues to ensure that you're not overwatering or underwatering your orchids. And how this happens is that thick velamen around your orchid roots, as it absorbs moisture and nutrients, so it becomes transparent, and then you can see the cortex layer underneath. And as those start to dry out again, those air gaps in the velamen reduce the visibility through it, and it reflects a silvery white color. So it helps you understand whether your orchid is actually needing more water or not. The only problem here comes in is if you're working with orchids that aren't in clear pots. You can't always tell from the top roots alone, because inside your media those roots might be nice and green and plump, whereas on the top that are exposed to the air may be silvery. And then you think you may need to water, but then perhaps you're overwatering. There are also certain orchid roots where the velamen itself is incredibly thin, and those need to be watered frequently, and you may not be able to tell the difference in the color of those roots when they're watered or not. Watering frequency number 4 is watering in small amounts frequently. This is to ensure that you're supplying small amounts of moisture to your plant regularly, to ensure that the media doesn't hold too much water, but still allowing your plant to get as much moisture as it needs. This is to try and mimic what happens in nature with the plant getting rainfall or dew and absorbing in those small amounts of moisture all the time without being constantly wet. So you're trying to mimic those conditions of misty, rainy weather like you'd get in the tropics where your orchids might grow naturally. The only problem with this is you've really got to monitor your humidity and moisture levels around your orchids all the time doing this, because you can be encouraging fungal growth. Watering frequency number 5 is the seldom but deep watering of your orchid. This is to ensure you get a good solid deep watering of your orchid, ensuring that the media is well soaked and the roots have had enough time to absorb as much water as possible. So it's basically soaking your orchids in water occasionally to ensure that they have that deep solid watering, and then allowing them to drain out. This is also supposed to mimic the rainfall, where your roots just get soaked for a period of time and then are allowed to dry out completely. The only problem here is by doing that deep soak and submerging those roots in water, if you are doing it for a long period of time, as some people insist, you are reducing the oxygen to those roots. They suggest orchids, due to their epiphytic nature, have adapted to infrequent watering, where they'll dry out for long periods and then be exposed to a lot of water and then be allowed to dry again. But soaking your orchids in water for long periods can be very problematic. Scientific research has shown that in those waterlogged environments, the oxygen exchange does not take place in the roots, and that damages the cells in your roots. So don't leave it soaking for too long. Watering frequency number 6, getting close to jazz hands, but we'll stop here. We'll go just to number 6, which is misting every day for those orchids in high humidities. What it is suggested is that misting your plant every day is going to be the ideal for your orchids, especially if they're mounted or if you're growing them in high humidities. This is going to basically emulate what they'd be getting in nature, which is all that dew formation. And the orchid roots are specially designed to be able to absorb that moisture quickly. And it's suggested to do this as opposed to soaking. And by doing this, this is particularly good for those orchids that are mounted and such, where just a good solid watering is not actually going to be enough. It's not going to hold moisture for very long. So adding all that extra moisture by misting is going to be important. But there comes to other considerations here. Just misting alone is not going to be enough, especially for in those dry indoor environments. You're going to have to supplement your misting with other forms of watering. It comes down to balancing your water frequency viewpoints with practicality. You need to take into account your climate, the media you're growing your orchid in, and the orchid type itself. With the climate, the things like the temperature, the humidity, and the air movement are all going to affect the evaporation rates and how long your media is going to hold moisture for. The media itself, also things like bark, is going to drain and dry a lot faster than something like sphagnum moss, so you'll also have to take that into account. Also, the type of orchids. You can't be treating cattleyas the same way as you want to treat Paphiopedilums with your watering, as cattleyas prefer the drier side and Paphiopedilums prefer a moister side. So you've got to look at all of these things when deciding on watering frequency for your orchids. So when it comes to the watering frequency of your orchids, adaptability is key. So monitor your orchid's environment and its response to your watering. That will help you managing your watering frequency to be ideal for your orchid. Also remember, overwatering is probably the leading cause of orchid death through root rot. So please watch out for that. Ensure that you're not watering too frequently. Also try and mimic the natural environment of your orchid and the frequency that it may be getting moisture or how it's getting moisture where it would grow naturally. This will ensure that you have a better chance of getting your watering frequency correct for stronger, better growth of your orchids. And Ed posts up a lot of content in that Buy Me a Coffee link. Be sure to go there, have a look. There's a lot of free content available for everyone. And don't be shy. Sign up, become a member, and grow like a pro. And thank you for watching. If you found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.